It is the 8th of September, 2025. This is Billings City Council business meeting. Please join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance by standing, and then we'll remain standing for our invocation. Councilmember Boyette will be filling in for Councilmember Rogers tonight.
Under God, with liberty and
Let us take a moment to pause and reflect. We gather tonight with gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community. May our decisions be guided by wisdom, fairness, and respect. May we listen with open minds, speak with integrity, and make decisions that strengthen the well-being of all who call this city home. We recognize the responsibilities entrusted to us and commit ourselves to the act with compassion, humility, and vision. May our work reflect the values of cooperation, justice, and care for one another. With that spirit in mind, let us begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Again, welcome everyone. Tony, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shaw.
here.
Gulick. Neese.
Present.
Owen. Here. Rogers.
Excused.
Kennedy.
Here.
Aspenleiter.
Here.
Tidswell. Here. Boyette. Rupsis.
Excused.
Mayor Cole.
Here. First item of business are minutes from August 25th, but I believe those are pending, or have those been distributed, Tony?
Pending.
Those are pending, okay. That was my recollection. So we'll come back to those at our next business meeting. First item up then are council courtesies, and I'd like to begin by asking representatives from Just Serve or the Just Serve organization to come on up to the podium, and if they've got some comments for us, to give them to us. As you might or might not recall, council, back in July, I signed the proclamation in recognition of Billings being a Just Serve city, in recognition that the values of compassion, empathy, and community support are foundational to Billings. And Just Serve is an organization that's dedicated to linking up those volunteering opportunities with the residents of our community. So Linadell Nielsen and your crew, come on up, and if you've got some comments for us, Aaron, and then they'd like to make a little presentation to us and also get a photograph. So Aaron.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I'm Erin Walker. I'm a volunteer specialist with JustServe.org. And as Mayor Cole said, I'm here with other specialists from the city to award Billings. But first I wanted to tell you really quick about our platform. So JustServe.org is a national website that connects nonprofits who are looking for volunteer help with community members who are in search of meaningful service opportunities. And so we work with the nonprofits to get their volunteer needs put on the website. And then any community member can go to justserve.org, put in our zip code, and then scroll through all the local service opportunities. And they can register right there for whatever matches their interests. So as I'm sure you know, research consistently shows that volunteerism helps to build stronger communities. So the studies show that people who give back to their community experience better overall health, greater life satisfaction, fewer hospitalizations, higher self-esteem, and greater ability to manage their chronic illnesses. Giving service reduces stress, depression, and anxiety, and it enhances one's sense of purpose. So in short, volunteering makes people feel good, and it leads to better physical and mental well-being. So any city that encourages volunteerism is enhancing the lives of their community members. So it's especially timely that we came today because September 11th has been designated as a National Day of Service in our country in honor of the sacrifices made on 9/11 by American heroes. So I encourage all of you to go to justserve.org and scroll through the many volunteer opportunities that are happening in this week in particular. Bring your friends, your neighbors, or just register yourself and start enjoying the happiness that comes from giving service. That's our mission at justserve.org. Now I'd like to turn the time over to Lynn Adele.
Thank you, council members and Mayor Cole. This is really an honor. This is exciting for us to be the first city in Montana to become a Just Serve city. There are 400 across the United States that are Just Serve cities and Canada. Also, this is an international website. It is in 14 countries. So service is important across the world. And so just in our city alone, just a little bit of tidbit, we have over 120 organizations on the website here locally, as well as approximately 88 projects that are available for volunteers to go out and volunteer. There's some that are ongoing. There's some that are just a one-day thing, or one that might be repetitive. So there's lots of opportunities to serve, and we just want the city and those in our community to know that this resource and tool is available to our community to utilize and serve these organizations that are reaching out for volunteering. So I have a plaque that is indicating that Billings, Montana is now a Just Serve city, and we'd like to present it to you.
That would be great. If you and your crew want to come up just in front, and council, if we'll stand and somebody can snap a picture. And Lindell, why don't you just hold the certificate? A little hard to do a handoff with this here, but if you just stand right in the middle holding it, then it'll be clear what that is, and we'll all smile. Very good. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Other council courtesies, Councilmember Kennedy.
Last Thursday evening, Phillips 66 had the picnic in the park at South Park. We had many nonprofit agencies there, and they invited folks all over the South Side to come. Free food, drink, and the ability to meet and talk with the different nonprofits. And I'd just like to say thank you to Phillips 66 once again for sponsoring that event. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Aspenleiter.
Thanks. Just wanted to commend Highlands Golf Club. The 4 golf pros at Highlands did their 100-hole challenge. They do that every year. This year they did it for Warriors in Quiet Waters, an organization that supports post 9/11 combat veterans with centering and grounding experiences in nature here in Montana. Organization founded out of Bozeman, but the golf pros played 100 holes in one day and raised about $40,000 for that organization. I think that's a nod to their commitment to serving those who have served for us, and I just wanted to recognize their efforts. Garrett Wooden, Brady Katie, Eddie Caverin, and Bryce Finman.
Very good. Thank you. Yes. Any other council courtesies this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to our proclamations. This evening we have 2 proclamations. The first one is in recognition of Suicide Prevention Day. So Nancy, if you and your compatriot want to come up, I will read the proclamation as you do so, and we'll give you a chance to make any other comments. So whereas, according to the CDC, there are approximately 118 suicides per day, over 43,000 suicides per year, and more than 1.5 million suicide attempts each year in the United States, making suicide the 11th leading cause of death. And whereas Montana has the highest suicide rate in the nation per 100,000 population, with over twice the national average. And suicide is the 8th leading cause of death overall and the 2nd leading cause of death among Montanans between the ages of 10 to 44. And whereas over 90% of the people who die by suicide have a diagnosable and treatable mental health condition, which is often not recognized or treated, and the stigma associated with mental health conditions and suicidality works against suicide prevention by discouraging persons at risk for suicide from seeking life-saving, help and further traumatizes survivors of suicide loss. And whereas organizations such as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention envision a world without suicide and are dedicated to saving lives and bringing hope through research, education, and advocacy for those who've lost or struggle, and urge that we first declare suicide prevention to be a priority. Second, acknowledge that no single suicide prevention program can be appropriate for all populations or communities. Third, encourage initiatives based on the goals contained in the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention and the 2023 Montana Suicide Prevention Strategic Plan. Fourth, promote awareness that that there is no single cause of suicide, and suicide most often occurs when stressors exceed current coping abilities in someone suffering from a mental health condition. And lastly, develop and implement strategies to increase access to quality mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention services. So now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, Montana, hereby proclaim Sunday, September 21, 2025, as Suicide Prevention Day in Billings, to coincide with the Yellowstone Valley Out of Darkness Walk for Suicide Prevention to be held on that same day. And with that, I'll turn it over. Nancy, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for having us today. I am just honored to have this proclamation read for suicide prevention. We're pretty thrilled to have the 21st as Suicide Prevention Day. Some of those statistics for Montana, they are just staggering, and we really do need to get the word out, get the prevention, the awareness, and that's basically what we're doing with this suicide prevention walk on the 21st. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention motto is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide, and also to bring mental health awareness to those that are struggling. And one other thing that I just wanted to mention about statistics is Montana has been #1 in the nation, or not #1, but in the top 5 of the nation for the last 40 years at least, which is, again, staggering. We do, in Billings and surrounding areas, our group does presentations, trainings. We do fundraisers around to get the awareness out. Being at different venues, we're able to pass out literature, information, and we also do trainings at the schools, at organizations, businesses, wherever anyone is interested in learning more about suicide awareness and prevention. And our Out of the Darkness walk, it brings everybody together in community. Most of the people are there because they've lost someone, they struggle themselves, or they are supporting someone who is lost, someone who is struggling. And those people are able to connect with others. We have 25 mental health support vendors that are going to be there. And we have some special activity that brings them to those different vendors, and they're able to make a connection. And sometimes it's life-changing to be able to make that connection with some mental health support. We have some of VA along with Intermountain Health and some of the therapists and counselors in town that'll be there. Our events, we try to keep the activities very meaningful and inclusive. We have activities for kids. We do live music. We have people that get up and talk about why they walk and how suicide has affected their lives. We have a big silent auction raffle, and we just have a lot of very meaningful things that we do on the 21st. It's free to register. You can go to our website at afsp.org/Yellowstone Valley. We would love to have you join us that day, and we are always looking for volunteers as well. Thank you very much. And we're also looking for volunteers to do the trainings and the presentations. So that's something that we're always in need of, because just with the pre-registration that we have so far, we probably have 25 different people that would like us to come do those presentations. And so we really are in need of those. But again, I just hope you will join us at Will James Middle School on September 21st. Event starts at 12:30. We'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for having us.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you for your help. Again, that date, remember, Sunday, September 21st, Will James, starting at 12:30.
Yes.
Thanks very good, or thank you very much.
Thank you.
And remember always the National Suicide Prevention number 988.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, elections are around the corner. And so we have a request from the League of Women Voters to recognize National Voter Registration Day through a proclamation. And that proclamation reads as follows. Whereas voting is the foremost right and responsibility of citizens of the United States, and whereas active and engaged citizens, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the foundation of democracy. And whereas for any democracy to work, all eligible citizens must be able to vote for their representatives without barriers in free and fair elections. And whereas the hallmark of good citizenship is community participation, including informed voting in every election in which a ballot is received. And whereas good citizenship includes respecting the other points of view, keeping an open mind, and taking care of one another. And whereas a thriving democracy includes governments that are open, transparent, inclusive, and equitable. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, Montana, hereby proclaim September 16, 2025 as National Voter Registration Day in Billings, and encourage all citizens to reflect on the importance of democracy and active citizen participation in government, and to remind friends and family to vote. And we join the League of Women Voters of Billings in reminding citizens to check their voter registration at www.myvoterpagemt.com to ensure that they are ready and able to vote in the upcoming election. With that, I don't know if we had any representatives from the league with us that wanted to add anything to that. I don't see anyone, so I think that's pretty self-explanatory. That concludes then our proclamations. Now, council reports. Any council reports from organizations that council members serve on? Councilmember Gulick?
Just wanted to report that there will be a Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Only one item on the agenda. I'm counting on it being short, so much so that I've scheduled another meeting at 10 o'clock. So, but it is happening this week. So now you know.
Very good, thank you. Seeing no others, City Administrator report. Kevin, filling in for Chris tonight.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I do have a few things for you this evening. Number one, we are going to ask you to remove item number 4 on the regular agenda tonight, the tax increment financing assistance extension from the agenda to November 10th council meeting or such a later date as to be mutually agreed upon by the developer and staff. And this was by the developer's request, but we do have representatives here if needed for that. The second thing I have tonight, we do know that there has been some concern about the stop sign compliance at 32nd North and both 2nd and 3rd Avenues, and staff are taking steps to address it. Not all the signs and striping are installed yet, and once that work is finished, the intersections will look more clearly like a 4-way stop. Also, in the meantime, we've added flags to the stop signs and placed temporary stop ahead signs. Longer term, we're looking at larger signs, lights on the stop signs, potentially relocating them closer to the drive lanes and possibly adding permanent stop ahead signage or striping. And finally, the police department has been also increasing traffic enforcement in that area to help reinforce compliance with these improvements that are underway. And I'm happy to report there have been no accidents, at least since August 1st at any of those intersections. The third thing I had tonight is in regards to the facilities management RFP. So on direction from City Council, staff did issue a request for proposals for comprehensive facility management services to ensure efficient operations, preventative maintenance, and long-term asset sustainability across multiple city facilities. Following the evaluation of one RFP submission and a subsequent modified proposal offering a short-term consulting arrangement, staff determined that neither approach meets the city's operational and financial requirements at this time. Some key considerations that were taken into account were alignment with the scope of work, operational readiness, modified proposal, and the financial and contractual considerations. For these reasons, staff does recommend not moving forward with either of these initial RFP proposal or the subsequent modified consulting proposal, and staff can continue to assess approaches to facilities management to best meet operational, financial, and public service needs with that. And the last thing I have tonight is our city attorney, Gina Dahl, did sound out an announcement that there will be a hearing tomorrow on the Colonial Apartments. It will be in Judge Nisley's courtroom, room 608 of the courthouse at 1:30 p.m. And this is in regards to the continuing lawsuit and hearings with the Colonial Apartments. So just a reminder of that, and you should all have an email with that in your inbox. And with that, there was no ex parte communication received after 3 p.m. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And Councilmember Kennedy indicated he'd like to ask you a question about the RFP process. Councilmember Kennedy?
Kevin, on the RFP process, we met last week. We didn't come up with a decision. So when did you and the staff make that decision?
So we did not meet last week. It was a couple weeks ago. We did receive the consulting proposal from the company that did submit the original RFP proposal.
Correct.
That was reviewed significantly out of scope of the original RFP, along with cost would basically require us, if we were going to go to a consulting route, to basically reissue a different RFP proposal for that.
So with that, the staff decided you weren't going to go forward.
Correct, because the original RFP proposal was 50% more than what we're currently paying.
I would have just asked, it would have been nice to have that discussion before hearing the final tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Council, on the scheduling issue, we'll come back to that. There was a request to move item 10 to a future agenda. On the chance that there's anybody here who would like to comment on that, we'll keep that on the agenda technically until we've had that public comment period. And then I'll ask for a motion or at least discussion on that issue before we get to the consent agenda. On item number 4, I'm sorry. Very good. I'm going to recognize Councilmember Neese just because he had his hand up, and then Councilmember Shaw. Councilor Neese?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I had a couple of questions with Kevin on this. I'm going to first go back to the crossing on 32nd Street, right? I did see the video of that, and it's a miracle we haven't had any accidents there because they're moving pretty fast. If anyone would walk out, they wouldn't have time to stop because they're going so fast. You say you're doing things. I saw some spot, they even said after the flags were up, people are still going through the intersection. Are you going to put something in the middle of the road maybe that says stop? I mean, a big barrel with a stop sign on it, something like that, at least temporarily until people realize this is a stop sign. I mean, it really needs to be a drastic, or someone waving there, put a crossing guard there with a stop sign, something until people realize this is a stop sign. Because if this is, it looks pretty dangerous from what I saw. I mean,
yeah, and that's one of the items that is on the list to look at, moving the stop signs closer to the traffic lane versus.
Yeah, I would do that right away because that's an easy move the barrel out there. You don't have to worry about plowing or anything like that around it right now. But that would be my recommendation because I don't want to see the city sued because and then the other thing I wasn't sure of, and I haven't traveled that one, but is the line of sight good with the tree and the new foliage in there to be able to see the stop sign from a distance? I'm just not sure if those stop signs are going to be able to be seen with the parked cars there and stuff like that because it's so far off from the bike lane.
Yeah, and we can make sure that the line of sight is clear there, free of any obstructions. But like you said, I think the main issue is that it's significantly outside the traffic lane at this point.
Okay. Regarding the RFP, I guess my concern is like any RFP, if it doesn't meet it, we either have to redo the RFP or we just have to quit it and keep going forward with what we need to do and hire for the position. When can we see this? Does the council have to see this to say, yes, this RFP is dead, or can this be done at next week's work session, or what's the process moving forward on this? So we can either kill this and move, or just get someone hired that fill the facility manager, or look to a new RFP.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Neese. I think council's original motion was for us to go out and issue that RFP for total facility maintenance services back on May 5th of 2025. that was completed. And with that, we did incur a 50% higher cost in that RFP than what we're currently, paying for facility management services. So with that, no, we normally do not bring anything back to council at that point. This was an informative thing for you that,
Good.
that we let you know that this is the status, that we did fulfill, council's vote and request for this. Normally in a normal RFP process, then what we would do is, if we were going to move forward with it, we'd negotiate a contract, and then we'd bring that contract back to council for you to then either approve or disapprove of that contract.
Okay, so the initiative's now complete, it's ended, and we're going to move forward with hiring a facilities manager, advertising and getting that going. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. That clarifies that.
And I'll just point out, on the earlier issue, our Public Works Director, Debbie Melling, is in the room, so she heard your comments on that issue as well. So if there's nothing else, we will move on then to public comment on. Oh, I apologize, Councilmember Shaw, out of sight, out of mind. I appreciate your yellow hand. Be sure to make sure we recognize you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to add a little more context to the RFP discussion for the rest of council to say we did talk about it at council operations last week, where 4 of us that are currently here were present. Kevin gave us some more of the background. So this was not just a decision from staff, to be clear, that the 4 of us collectively all said basically exactly what Kevin communicated tonight. So just so that everyone's aware that this wasn't just staff coming back, this was kind of vetted through council operations. So thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Kenny said he'd like to make a final comment.
I'm just going to make the final comment on that. I was on the RFP committee and I didn't even know about it. So if the operations committee is going to make decisions or whatever, and you can't even let the council person know that's on the committee, it's pretty sad.
Understood that it was on our agenda, but it was relatively late. So your concern is understood. And I wouldn't say it was a decision, but that was the advice to staff, that they had completed the direction of the council, which was to issue the RFP. Okay, that concludes then Administrator reports, public comment on non-public hearing items. Tonight, that's item 1, the consent agenda, and then also item number 4, the Old Billings Hardware TIF extension request. Items 2 and 4 we'll have a public hearing on later, so we'll have an opportunity for public comment then. Is there any public comment on items 1 or 4? If so, please feel free to come forward to the podium and tell us your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber at 815 South 27th Street. Won't take me 3 minutes. I'll be very brief, considering your recommendation to push this to a later date, and because we've weighed in on this in the past, back in 2022 when it originally passed. But I will briefly emphasize the positive benefits of the infill, adding to our tax base, and namely our downtown tax base, adding housing in a very desirable area of town. And of course, because I can't leave the podium without mentioning crime prevention through environmental design, the benefits of bringing additional residents to our downtown, those eyes on the streets, that natural surveillance to help either deter crime and would-be criminals or report it to the police so that our police can handle it. So for those reasons, I would ask your support either tonight or perhaps in the very near future. So thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any other public comment on item 1, any of the subparts on our consent agenda, or item number 4? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period and entertain any scheduling issues about our agenda, including the recommendation from Kevin. Is there any further questions for Kevin on the request to move item number 4 to November 10th or a later date as agreed by staff and developer, or is there a motion? Councilmember Aspenleiter?
And Mayor, you can tell me whether this is the appropriate place to ask the question. If we're going to move this, I would hope we're going to have a vote on that. I've got a line of questioning about how this impacts our TIF balance sheet and the obligation, but I don't know if this is the appropriate time. It would be appropriate if we keep it tonight.
Yeah, let's just say it's relevant to only the scheduling issue if that's what the motion is. So if it would,
Okay, I'm going to be opposed to moving it tonight. I'm going to want to talk about this now.
okay. Councilmember Boyette, you indicated a desire to make the motion, I believe.
We've set the precedent by letting people who've come before us for TIF requests that we move them to a different date when they've requested it. We've done this on several occasions. So for the sake of this, I'll say, Mayor, I'd like to move that we move item number 4 to November 10th at the individual's request.
Okay, Councilmember Boyette, just to clarify, the motion or the suggested motion was to November 10th or a later date if the developer and staff agreed. Was that part of your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion made by Councilmember Boyette? I will second that motion. So now discussion on that motion. Councilmember, well, I'll just ask Councilmember Boyette, did you want to address, you've already done that. Anything
Yeah,
further?
only that we've allowed other entities to reschedule at their request. And so that's why I move this forward.
Okay, and I don't have any comments, Councilmember Absteller?
I'm interested in talking about this now because I think this is different than other times. I mean, this is an application that was approved 3 years ago. They've been unable to move this ball forward. We continue to punt. My concern is that this obligation continues to show on the downtown TIF, and we keep moving it back and moving it back, but it still shows as an obligation. And if this project isn't ready to go, it needs to come back when it's ready to go. I'm not against supporting it when it's ready, but I am against tying the money up in perpetuity until they figure it out. That's not how this should go. We shouldn't see half-baked projects and then have them holding on to the dollars until they can figure it out. We should be seeing these applications when they're ready to go and when they're ready to be implemented. So my concern and the reason I want to talk about this tonight is because I want to know, are we continuing to carry this obligation forward? And if we are, then I think we need to kill this application and let them go back through the reapplication process when they're actually ready, so that we're not holding money back from other folks that are ready. And by the way, this is a TIF district that is not flush.
Councilor Asplundh, I'll comment because I was the one who kind of raised this issue because I recognize the wisdom of what you said. And it was actually because of that my understanding is why they would like to delay it, because they're waiting on some final green light on some financing, and they don't want to come here until they can represent, they've got that green light. But they think the green light will come in the very near future, hence the reason for the delay. We do have the developer here that we could investigate that further. If you'd like.
I mean, one further point of clarification. I mean, this extension request was also not run back through the TIF board. It did not go back in front of the Downtown Business Partnership. So they also didn't look at this to give us, I mean, their recommendation was in 2022 when the world was different than it is today. So to me, at the very least, this needs to go back through the TIF board with a new recommendation based on new financials, which are apparently not complete. So again, I think we get ourselves in trouble when we just lag these things along and we don't bring projects, we commit money to projects that aren't ready to actually go. Come when you're ready.
Very good. We'll continue the discussion. Again, we do have the developer with us if we would like it. Councilmember Nace.
Mayor, I think this will tie up a lot of time right now. And I think if we were to just hear it on the agenda at the agenda time, we can address all of this because I think there's a lot of questions I have as well that I would like to talk about this. But to do it all right now and delay the rest of them, I don't think I'm going to support the delay of it. But we can always delay it when we hear it at the end of the agenda at item 4 when we actually hear it. So I'm gonna not support the motion to move it from the agenda, and we'll address that whether we're not gonna delay it at that time.
Okay, further discussion on, again, the scheduling motion.
Mayor, one other item I want to mention, Ed hasn't said anything, but I'm sure he's recusing himself from any of this discussion.
I will.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. I will support the motion to delay. I agree. We've set a precedent of doing this when developers ask. I think it makes sense to have this come back when there's going to be answers to all these questions. But my one question related to the motion is, did this go before the DBP? I would like just some clarification on that, so that's not out there floating if based on whether or not that happened. I
Oh.
was under the impression it had.
Very good. Wyeth is coming to the podium, and then if he doesn't know the answer, developer Randy Hafer is with us as well. So Wyeth?
Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. Yeah, actually, Randy is here, and Mehmet is also here as well. I guess I'll just give you a little background, which a lot of it was in the memo as well, which is that just a couple months ago, the applicant was preparing to sign the development agreement, which is normally what happens sometime after approval of the project. The discovery came to me that there was a condition that the council had placed on the original approval of the 365 days from approval that the development agreement had to be signed, and it was either that or it was tied to some tax credits that they were pursuing. And so what happened was then at that point we had to back up because we had passed the 365 days. And so it needed to come back because it was a council imposed condition. That condition actually we didn't have any record of that from the DBP board. Mehmet had spoken with that board. They're aware of all this. They knew that. They were like, that's fine, just go, let's get this sorted out. So it didn't go back to them for another review and recommendation for a second time. That's why that part didn't happen. It was because the condition had been imposed at the time of the council had made the approval. So we were coming back to council because of that. So that's the background on why we're here and the issue with the development agreement and that language. The applicant obviously could speak more to the financing piece and such, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's why DBP board didn't do another action on it.
Okay, very good. I guess we'll, council, we want to get into our regular agenda, so this is just a scheduling issue, so I'll proceed to a vote now if there's no further discussion. Councilor Gulick?
I just need to more formally recuse myself because my business is involved with this project.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification. So if the motion is clear, it's to move item 4 to November 10th business meeting or such other later date as might be agreed by the developer and staff. Let's go ahead and do a show of hands of those in favor of the motion and those against. So if in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Myself and Councilmember Boyette and Councilmember Shaw. If in opposition, raise your hand. All other council members, Tidswell, Aspenlighter, Kennedy, Owen, and Neese. And so that is 3 in favor, 5 against. So the motion fails. So we'll go ahead and keep this on the regular agenda, and we'll get to it in item 4 and have a more detailed discussion then. With that, we'll move on then to our regular agenda, which is first our consent agenda. Tony, would you read item 1?
I don't typically read the
Oh, I
consent
apologize.
agenda.
I haven't asked for separations. So focused on that. Let's get separations on item number 1. Do we have any this evening? We don't have any separations. So we'll move ahead with looking for motions. Councilmember Neese?
I move to approve the items on the consent agenda as submitted with the exception, well, there's no exceptions, as submitted by the staff.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Gulick. Is there now any discussion on these items? Councilmember Neese?
Thank you. I didn't separate these or make a motion to remove these, but E, F, and G, I had an email conversation with Gina earlier today. These are airport leases up at that are valued over the 10 years about $18,200, which is well within the city administrator's authority of $80,000. When I talked to Gina, and Gina can speak here in a minute about it, but there is our code that talks about that. under purchases, section 22902 says, leases of city-owned real property shall be executed from, excluded from this section and will be approved by the same manner as all other contracts submitted to the city for approval. So all of our contracts typically are submitted. If they're over $80,000, we see them. If they're under $80,000, the city administrator just signs them. And so I think these shouldn't be coming to us. Just even talking about them or delaying it more than we could have all approved and moved on. But if we want to have the city administrator do their job, they should be approved and they shouldn't be on the agenda. Now I'll approve them if you guys think we need to, but I think we need to make it clear and that something like this, I think Gina can speak to this. She thinks the code is not clear on the fact that maybe these, we need to change our code to specifically say leases are authority by the city administrator. So Gina, if you want to mention or kind of summary what you think needs to be done or not done.
Yeah, Lisa, or Gina, please.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Neese. The resolution that Councilmember Neese referenced and that I referenced in the email is the resolution that establishes the city administrator signing authority up to $80,000. That signing authority applies specifically in that resolution to purchases, purchase of goods and services. Other types of contracts are not addressed in that resolution. And so there's no explicit authority anywhere that I'm aware of that allows the city administrator to sign any other types of contracts because of this murkiness that I think was kind of applied in different ways over the last many, many years. I have started advising staff to bring contracts that where there is no explicit authority for the city administrator to sign to council for approval. Councilmember Neese mentioned the city code section that addresses selling city property and leases obviously are excluded from that section. And it says, as Councilmember Neese mentioned, that those leases will be approved in the same manner as all other contracts submitted to the city for approval. And there really isn't any one manner for all other contracts, as I just kind of described. So that is the reason why these come to you, because it's unclear what council is willing to delegate, what authority council is willing to delegate to the city administrator for executing contracts and agreements.
Okay, so for tonight, doesn't sound like you would recommend that we not go ahead with approval, but long-term, we might want to make some clarification if we wanted to make an exception for low-dollar leases. And
yeah, I think it would be a good idea to get that quickly as soon as possible, as we're doing a lot of different leases. We see a lot of these airport leases all the time, and these are renewals, some ownership change, but basically renewals of these leases and updating them. So I would hope that we could get this done, and especially if it's in a resolution, it'd be very quick to get it done and clarify that. So
it certainly would be helpful for any clarification that council is willing to provide of what kind of authority that is city administrator has. And we wouldn't clog up these consent agendas and regular business meetings with a bunch of little contracts.
Okay, thank you. If I could, I'd ask our new airport number 2, Paul. Come on up if you would. Apologize for putting you on the spot. But if this is an opportunity for you to introduce yourself, if you would. Jeff Roach is out of town this evening. So Paul is here with us. And so I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself for sure. But also while we're talking about these leases generally, I was struck just by the low dollar amount too, specifically $1,800 a year, about $150 to have an airport hangar. Seemed like a deal to me. And I was just wondering how we know that that's fair market value. And in particular, do we do a good job of advertising them basically for bids so other people know when leases are coming up, and if they want to pay a lot more, they could we could help them do that. But could you just tell us a little bit, and you're relatively new to this, right? So you're not going to know a lot of the history, but a little bit more about what you know about our process for granting these airport leases. And let's start off with the introduction.
So my name is Paul Kara, and I came here from Juneau, Alaska. So I worked for Alaska DOT for many years for the Juneau Airport, and 20 years prior to, I had 20 years with the airlines as well. So there's the introductions. So I mean, yes, the lease amounts are they're pretty small. So it's common for airports to do that because they have to be used for aviation, and we want to develop aviation. And that lease amount is just for the land. The tenant has to build their own hangar. They have to do the utilities, the cement pad, everything. They have to do all that. And the price, our business manager did a comparison with other airports around Montana and in the country to come up with a fair price. The fair market value in town does not apply to what's at the airport. So they came up with that price. They went a little on the high side of what other airports are charging, and they came up with that price. And I can tell you in Alaska, same thing. It just astounds me how inexpensive airport land is to rent out. When I look at, my property taxes are more than that. But that's how airports work, and that's one of the reasons why we don't allow people to put in non-aviation items in their hangars. They can't put boats in there or fancy sports cars or anything. It's just for aviation, and it develops aviation that way.
Very good, and welcome, and thank you. Could you just tell us, though, what do we do when these are expiring? How do we get the word out that if somebody did want to put in a bid, they could do that? And I assume that they could, right? It shouldn't be a secret that these are coming up and
I don't know the details of the leasing. That's another area, but generally, if somebody's already in there, they get to just renew. Is usually how it works at airports in general. I'm not sure how it works in Billings, but I'm assuming it works similarly. If there's new land available, which we're trying to develop, then it gets advertised, and then we can look at who wants the land and what they're going to do with it. And of course, it's our interest to develop aviation at the airport.
Okay, thank you. So it's possible that once you've got a lease, you'll just always have the opportunity to renew without anybody else, quote, bidding on it. Any other questions for Paul, Councilmember Denise?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And two of these are actually where ownership changed, and I think that's what happens is they change ownerships and then they just take over the leases. But I've looked at this, and you're right, leasing is low, but it's low across the entire state. I think we actually are probably one of the highest, but I think we deserve that. We need to be a premier airport, and I think we need to be higher. In fact, 29 cents is, to me, still cheap. I would like to see it 39 or 40, because around the country there are some airports that are up in that 40, 50, 60, 90. So it depends on that. But the other thing I notice is they differentiate between commercial and not residential, but private. And so I think that maybe because of our airport, we may want to start looking at that, maybe having different lease rates for commercial versus private, and in that trying to incentivize some of that way. But that's just my thought. That's the only difference I've seen in when I looked around the country at different rates. That they break it down between that. And I don't know if it's beneficial and we need to move that way yet in the city of Billings, but I just throw that out there for you to consider. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Nothing else for Paul? I don't see anything. So thank you. And again, welcome to Billings.
Thank you.
Anything else in the way of discussion on item one? Councilor Aspenlander?
I was just going to commend us on not blowing up the consent agenda, and then we did it anyway. So perfect. Let's go to a vote.
Very good. I won't shut you down if there is any other discussion, but I don't see any. So the motion is for approval of the consent agenda. Is there, if in favor, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item two, first item up on a regular agenda. Tony, would you read item number 2, please?
Public hearing and resolution setting special improvement lighting maintenance district assessments. Staff recommends approval.
Jennifer's coming forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is for approval of the annual street improvement lighting maintenance districts, also called SILMDs. So we do review the assessments annually, and we set assessments at a level that is needed to recover the costs of maintenance and electricity, and then charge those back through assessments to properties within each district. We do calculate each individual district separately. The costs are based on what is needed in that individual district, based on assessments that are outstanding, as well as cash, the projected operations and electricity increases. So we currently have 65 city-owned SILMDs. And so in these districts, we not only administrate them, but we also do the operations and maintenance for the districts. And then we have 123 districts that are owned by other entities, primarily Northwest Energy. And so we do the administrative work for these districts, but we do not do the maintenance for them. And then we have a combination of districts where we have 9 districts that have a combo of city-owned and other entities that own them. So for FY26, our assessments are projected to generate $2.9 million. It's an increase of $177,000 from FY25. It is about a 6.5% increase overall, but not all districts are increasing by the same amount. We did project our electricity increases at 25% more than what we paid for actual in FY25, but we do not have to assess all of that amount, because we also had projected an increase for FY25 that did not come into fruition until, I think, May. So we do have some reserves there. We were able to hold some of those districts down, and we ended up with 41 districts that have no change, 77 districts that will decrease, and 79 districts that will increase. So that is all for streetlights, and we're asking you to hold a public hearing tonight and then approve the streetlight district assessments for FY26.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there factual questions for Jennifer? This is a public hearing. We'll open it up, but if there's some questions for Jennifer, Councilmember Kennedy?
Jennifer, we were at the Southside Task Force meeting 2 weeks ago, and there was a gentleman that came up and he gave me a whole laundry list of every light on the south side that hasn't been lit for quite a while. He talked to his councilman from the district, and but they haven't been lit. They've been dark for a long period of time. I'm going to have a real tough time voting for this evening, because there were so many lights out down there. And how in clear conscience can we actually raise fees and charge people when their street lights aren't even working?
So Councilmember Kennedy, I'm not sure if he has complained to either the city or Northwest Energy. I'm not sure what type of district it is, but we always look into those. And if you have a list of lights, we can certainly do that.
I will get you that list in the morning.
Okay, perfect. I will tell you the assessments for these districts only recover what is needed. So if we don't assess the districts, we can't operate or pay for the electricity for the districts.
Very good. I guess that raises an obvious question, Jennifer. We've always just raised all, regardless of who owns them, we'd raise the districts together at the same rates. Theoretically, could we just raise the rates on the city, ones that only have city lights, and not raise them, or raise them for a different rate, those that are owned by somebody else?
So Mayor Cole, we actually raise them all independently. It doesn't matter if it's city-owned or if it's owned by, say, Northwest Energy. It's really based on what the costs are, what the reserve levels are, and what is needed for the next year.
In that individual district?
In the individual district.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, is there any audit that's done on the lights, the city district's lights, to make sure that they are lit, or is it just based on customer complaint?
It is based on customer complaints.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Don't see any, so we'll open it up for public comment. This is a public hearing on the proposed changes to the lighting district assessments. If you'd like to comment, please come to the podium, tell us who you are, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there any public comment on item number 2, these proposed changes to the lighting assessments? Is there any public comment on item number 2? This is a public hearing, so please come forward before I close the public hearing. No one is standing up, no one's coming forward, so we'll close the public hearing. Back to council. Councilor pointing to another finger down, Councilmember Neese.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution setting special improvement lighting maintenance district SILMD assessments as recommended by staff.
Councilmember Aspenlighter indicates a second. Councilmember Neese or Aspenlighter, would you like to speak to your motion? No and no. General discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? I just want to second the idea that Councilmember Neese said, which maybe we need to be more proactive on this issue and either send people around late at night or have a more aggressive way to tell the public, hey, if your light is out in your lighting district, send an email, send a number, just to make sure that their eyes on the street literally, or they know what to do with that information. So I think either of those would be good ideas. Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, the motion is for approval of the proposed rates in item number 2. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes with the exception of Councilmember Kennedy voting in opposition, all other council members voting in favor. That concludes item number 2. Brings us to item number 3. Tony, would you read item number 3?
Public hearing and resolution setting and assessing encroachment rental fees. Staff recommends approval.
Back to Jennifer.
All right, another quick item, I think. This item is for approval of the resolution to assess the encroachment fees for FY26. An encroachment is any privately owned structure that is in the public right-of-way. So this slide kind of gives the history of our encroachment rental fees. Back in 1985, we set the encroachment rental fee at $1 per square feet. And that fee continued for the next, 36 years until we changed it in FY21. And at that time, council not only increased the fee, but they also approved a new methodology that we adopted for the encroachment fees, and approved a 5-year plan to increase the fees. So the methodology that was changed back in 2021 was to change it to a 2-tier structure. And we have the tier 1, which has minimal impact to the right-of-way. And then tier 2 is the major impact to the right-of-way. So tier 2 encroachments make part of our right-of-way unusable to others. So the 5-year plan to increase the assessments was a plan to increase to the average, or 50% of the average assessed value of adjacent land. So what we do is we take the DOR assessed value of land for each property and figure out the square foot for each property, and then we average those across all of them. And that is the level that we are trying to get to per that plan back in 21. So 25 last year should have been the 5th year of the 5-year plan, but the assessed values increased greatly. And so we recommended to extend the 5-year plan out another 3 years. So this is then the 6th year, FY26, to try to get it to the value that council approved back in 2021, that 50% of the average assessed value. So for FY26, what we are proposing for tier 1 is an 11-cent increase in the tier 1 rate, and then a $1.50 increase in the minimum annual fee. For tier 2, we're proposing to go from $6.45 per square feet or linear foot to $7.80. And the table at the bottom shows 5 different encroachments that we have. The first one is a tier 1, the next 4 are all tier 2s. Showing what the assessed value would be in FY25 and FY26. We do have 131 encroachments currently in Billings, and those are assessed to 154 tax codes. If these fees are adopted tonight, it would bring in $129,000 in revenue from these fees. You probably or hopefully saw an email from me earlier today where Councilmember Neese had brought up a question where he was wondering why some of the properties that were on the list of assessments were less than the minimum fee. And that is because we do have encroachments that are then prorated across multiple properties. Say a sign that has serves 5 properties, and then it's allocated to the 5. So he did request, after looking at the resolution, to make a language change, and that's in section 3 of the resolution, and it says there is hereby fixed, levied, and assessed a special assessment upon or prorated upon the lots of parcels of land with an encroachment as provided in the schedule attached. So just adding a couple parts in there to clarify that we do this. Public Works has no issue with the change or supportive of it if council chooses to do so. And that concludes our presentation. Again, we're asking you to hold the public hearing and approve the encroachment fees for FY26.
Very good. Questions for Jennifer, Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes, Jennifer, what do you use these fees for?
We have specified that they are for beautification of the right-of-way. It could be for sweeping. It could be for different landscaping. It could be for the wraps around boxes. Anything that's.
So for the increase this year, what do you have planned for that?
We don't have anything specifically planned. It's what comes up during the year.
Very good. Other questions, Councilmember Roy?
Jennifer, could you give us a rough estimate of how much we collected last year?
Last year, I think it's in the memo.
Sorry if that was in there. I don't recall seeing it. So 18.5 less than whatever we collected. Yeah. And what did we do with it last year?
I would have to check. I know that some was used for sweeping, some was used on Shiloh, some was used in the downtown right-of-way area, but I'd have to check.
Okay.
We don't have anything specifically where we budget for these. It's just part of different projects that we do.
Did we spend everything we collected, or are we compiling some reserves there?
We never, it doesn't generate enough to really compile.
So we spend what comes in?
Correct.
And do we do these things kind of, we drive by and see that there's a need to go sweep or paint or something, or how does this happen?
A lot of times it's generated by a citizen request, or something that our staff has seen. Other times it's part of a different project that we're doing.
And it just gets assessed then to that.
Right.
Okay. And then one last question, Mayor. Sure. If we were to decide tonight to hold the fee flat at last year's rate, what would be the consequence of that?
Less money for the beautification of the right-of-way. All we require is that we recover our costs. That's what we need in Public Works, is to recover our costs, because we don't have general fund money to make that up.
Sure.
But the increase is really it's all for the beautification of the right-of-way, so it wouldn't do anything really other than
harmful.
Hold our costs.
It wouldn't do anything harmful.
No,
that's what you're saying. Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Very good. Other questions for Jennifer? Councilmember Neese?
Jennifer, do you happen to know how much would be collected once we're fully funded?
Let's see. I think we have another 40% above what our current level is. So we'd be close to 200,000.
Okay. Once you get to that level, is that a better way to start planning for that every single year and how to spend it, and to ensure that the right of way is beautified, things are being fixed around there, they need to be fixed?
Yeah, absolutely. If we knew what our amount was and we got to that amount, we could have a prioritization process for those projects.
Great, thank you.
Jennifer, since you use these monies for improving landscaping, I guess I'm assuming that includes getting rid of weeds. Every day I drive down Rimrock and I see 3-foot weeds in the sidewalks. Typically, where there is a backyard fence of a homeowner or a big housing development and a big giant boulevard, and it's out of sight, out of mind, those homeowners have no interest in taking care of that sidewalk. could these dollars be used for that? That'd be one thing. And then also, what's the status of efforts to improve the landscaping and the medians on Shiloh? That was such a beautiful place when it was first built. We all know the landscaping is all blown away or covered by dirt or whatever, but I see some efforts to make some changes there. Can you just address those two specific issues?
First, on the sidewalk issue, it really is the adjacent property owner's responsibility. I guess we could take on that responsibility if council wanted us to. It would be with our street crews, and it would just take away from the work that they do now. And then as far as the other issue for Shiloh, they did do some work out there. Obviously, the landscaping that was originally in place wasn't quite maybe right for Billings, and so we are working to get that back up to where it's really good looking and better, a corridor that we can really be proud of.
Very good. I applaud those efforts. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I see that the majority of the money is from outdoor patios. Is that correct? That they generate the most amount of money?
The outdoor patios do generate, are usually the most expensive encroachments. I don't think they generate the bulk of it because there's only a few. We've actually never had a complaint from any owner of the patios, the businesses that have the patios, because they generate so much money off of those patios that the encroachment rental fee is worth it to them.
Thank you.
Anything further for Jennifer before we open up for public comment? Okay, thank you very much. This is also a public hearing on the proposed encroachment rental fees. If anybody would like to comment, this is your opportunity. Please come to the podium. As I've said before, we just ask that you tell us who you are and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on item number 3? If so, please come forward. This is a public hearing. This is a public hearing. Is there any public comment on item number 3? Please come forward if there is. No one is coming forward. No one's standing up. So we'll close the public hearing on item number 3. Council, how do you want to proceed? Councilmember Aspenlider, Councilmember Denise?
Mayor, I'm going to move to set the rates at the FY25 rates and leave the encroachment permitting process as is today.
Is there a second? I apologize. I recognize Councilmember Denise, but Councilmember Rowan also indicated, so you guys could fight it out. if that's what you intended.
No, I would not be seconding that.
Oh, okay, very good. Councilmember Rowan then makes the second. Would you like to address your motion? And then Councilmember Rowan, if she wants to comment too.
I think this is such a low dollar amount, and it moves the needle zero. This is us putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. We talk about trying to encourage businesses. Increasing their fees and their rates downtown is not the way to do that. This is more accounting problems than it's even worth. I mean, we're going to raise it 11 cents, just enough for somebody to notice and get miffed about, and then ring everybody's phone that we increase their patio fee. I mean, if we want traffic downtown, we should be looking at things like this, not trying to increase fees and put more cost on businesses downtown. So I'm going to support keeping it as it is.
Very good. Councilmember Rowan, did you want to address your second?
Thank you, Mayor. Fully agree. I think, heaven forbid we not give a call and response to SEPTED, but having eyes on the street matters. Having these patios available is part of a good public safety strategy. And we see downtown businesses closing. I think it's, we should do what we can to support our restaurants who want to be out on patios. I recognize that they're not complaining, but I also recognize that their margins are getting thinner and thinner all the time, and whatever we can do, I just think it makes sense to hold it where it's at. So I will strongly support the motion.
Very good. Other discussion? Councilmember Kennedy? Oh, and then Councilmember Shaw.
I have just one concern, and that's the encroachment fees. We have no clue what we're going to use the encroachment fees for. We may use it for landscaping. We may use it. We have no projects. So why do we keep on asking for this money and then say, well, we got a slush fund so we can do something? I have some real concern on that. so I can't raise it this year.
Very good. Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. Jennifer, if I could ask you a quick question. My concern with not doing this incrementally is that in the past we've had to make bigger jumps on things like this, and that is a much harder hit to businesses. I much prefer for businesses to be able to plan as we incrementally increase these fees. So if we do not increase them this year by this small amount, what are we looking at next year and going forward? I think you've heard comments from council about wanting specific projects, maybe potentially to tie this to, which is not a bad idea. But could you talk about that a little bit? Because that is my concern, is that we're gonna in a few years have to suddenly jump them a lot, and it's gonna be a much larger hit to businesses.
Councilmember Shaw, there is no requirement that we ever increase to that 50% of the assessable value of the land. That was, what the thought was back in 2021. We do need to have them set enough to discourage everybody from wanting to go into the right of way. We would never be able to construct water and sewer mains if everyone was within the right of way. So we want it to be a level where it discourages people. I mean, it is a huge benefit to people to be able to have an outdoor patio that they didn't have to pay for the land, they didn't have to pay for any of those costs for that. And I agree, it's also a huge benefit for Billings to have those. So I don't think that it will increase in future years unless council wants it to still get up to that 50% value. If we wanted to, there's no set that we have to do it in 3 years or 2 years. We will definitely come back next year and make sure that we have the list of projects that we plan on spending the money for. But I don't see a big issue with not increasing.
Very good. Thank you. Other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Denise?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the idea of having this being small it's true. There's not very much money there, but the whole idea was to ensure that this fund grew so that we could do something with it. And I am, as we heard from Jennifer, is once it grows to 200,000, they can start budgeting and planning for something like that. I would like to see, like you said, next year we will have some plans. I would like to see us starting to do that so that we make sure that we're using this fund, whether it's for Shiloh or some other areas that need that right of way improved. That is the whole idea of this, is to generate funds for right of way because the right of ways are being impeded upon, so the public can't use them. So I won't support the motion, but I would offer a substitute motion to, having conducted a public hearing and considered written and spoken testimony, I move to approve resolution setting and assessing encroachment rental fees as recommended by staff.
Okay, second by Councilmember Gulick. You have a substitute motion adopting the original staff recommendation. Discussion now on the substitute motion.
Mayor, let me just speak to the motion.
Go ahead.
Again, I think, as we heard from staff, there's not that many patios that utilize this, a few downtown. And if anything, patios, as Jennifer mentioned, they haven't complained. I've dealt with a lot of restaurants. They turn tables. This just gives them extra money to turn tables on, and they do well turning those tables. And so there is a really good benefit for them. And so it doesn't really impede their business to have a little bit. It's like $10 a day for the one that we saw on there. So it's very, very inexpensive for them to have this additional room to put tables on it and generate revenue from. And so I think that, again, the whole idea was, when we looked at this before, it was really not very much. It wasn't capturing the cost and wasn't giving the city and the public works the ability to do anything in the right of way to beautify it. And this is the whole idea, is when we started this program, to get it to an amount that could generate revenue, that could benefit and offset the loss of use by public within some of these right of ways, where the businesses are having an advantage by using that public right of way. So I would hope that you would support this continued vision to see this up to that 50% level over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Gulick, did you want to address your second?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the encroachment fees exist because there's private use of the public the public's resource, and it's not available then to the public. So I think there's good reason to have them, and I think the plan that council put together a few years ago for gradually increasing them, not in a big leap, makes good sense. I think, I mean, these are for encroachments that are throughout the community. I think that being said, it would be, as we look at where we would spend the money for beautifying the public right of way, we'd want to make sure that there's not a wholesale transfer, I guess. If most of it comes from downtown, I think we should be keeping most of it downtown. But this would be something to be available for like the 6th Street underpass area there for landscaping. I think it's something we should be wanting to grow. So I will be supporting. I think a motion I seconded.
Very good. Further discussion on the substitute motion. I'll just comment. I will support the substitute motion just because I was involved with the original plan and out of consistency there. I don't know if these are high or low, but I can see the value of the dollars. We heard that we're already using 100% of what we gain, so I think we would just do more of what we are already doing with these dollars. But personally, I am a weed Nazi, and it drives me crazy driving down our city streets, our major legacy arterials, and seeing all the weeds. And I just know it's unrealistic to expect the businesses or the homeowners oftentimes to deal with that, especially when they're many feet away or separated by a large fence and a large boulevard. It's just not going to happen. So I'd love to see these dollars available for that purpose. And also getting on Shiloh, the old Laurel Road, Main Street, in the Heights. There's just a lot of opportunity for improving the look of our community, and this is a place to find at least a small amount of dollars for that purpose. So any further discussion before we vote on the substitute motion? Okay. If in favor of the substitute motion, we'll do it by a show of hands. Please raise your hand. Voting in favor are council members Gulick, Neese, Cole, and Boyette. If in favor, and Councilmember Shaw, I apologize. And if voting in opposition are council members Owen, Kennedy, Aspenlider, and Tidswell. So it looks like that is 5 in favor of the substitute motion, 4 against. So the staff recommendation for the increase of fees is adopted. That's
just the motion on the table.
Well, it's a substitute motion in favor of that eliminates the underlying motion.
No. Procedurally, that's not how that works.
We'll ask the parliamentarian to address that. So that's my understanding of why it's called substitute motion. It eliminates any need for debate then on the underlying motion.
Per our rules, I believe that's how it is to be interpreted as well. That it substitutes the motion.
So you agreed with my interpretation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And my understanding is parliamentarians' decision on that issue is then controlling. So we can get further discussion later for future purposes, but Gina, do you want to comment further?
I was just going to cite the section for Councilmember Aspenlider if he wishes to take a look at that.
Sure, that'd be great if it's available.
Yeah, 2-221 subsection 2G.
Okay, very good. Then I think that concludes an item number 3 and brings us then to item number 4. Tony, would you read item number 4?
Tax increment financing assistance extension from the Downtown Urban Renewal TIF District for Old Billings Hardware Development Venture LP for its mixed-use project at 2802 Montana Avenue, up to $745,000. Downtown Billings Partnership Board recommends approval.
Very good. And back to Wyeth.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'll be brief since you've already started discussing this, and it sounds like mainly you want to hear more from the applicant at this point. So I don't have a formal presentation on this. All the information you received in the memo in terms of the same request, the same ask, the same actions are, that hasn't changed. The amount is the same and the proposed distribution is the same. And as I believe Councilmember Aspenleiter pointed out earlier, this has been in the downtown Billings partnership in the budget for the downtown district since the recommendation was made. So it continues to be a placeholder in there. And as I mentioned just briefly, that what happened was there was this 365-day condition or the completion of the phase 2 of the tax credits process that the applicant was working through. And the 365 days came first. And so that's why when it was realized that as they were preparing to execute the development agreement, that it had to return to council for action, for basically reaction on it again, because that time frame had expired. So the conditions that are proposed now, I guess the only one that's different is that the condition number 1 is that the development agreement be executed within 60 days. We usually do 180 days, but they were trying to get that done before, so we're trying, moving that forward based on that and getting it done so that the project moves forward. So with that, I can answer questions, but like I said, we've got the applicant here and also Mehmet Casey with Downtown if there's any questions from that standpoint as well.
Very good. I'm sure we'll have some questions for the developers. So if you want to come on out, feel free. But let me start with one, and then Councilmember Bernice has a question. Can you just address the very good point made by Councilmember Aspenleiter, which is what's the partnership's position on this extension since it wasn't officially approved? Do they have a meeting coming up? Is this something that we could get their input on?
Mayor and council, it could be put on their agenda. It is not on their agenda. It was not planned to be put on their agenda. They were aware of this, as I said, in speaking with Mehmet Casey about this when we got into this, and it was determined to bring it back to council because the condition was imposed at the council level. So at this point, no, it is not scheduled for a meeting.
Okay, so there's no opposition from, quote, staff, Mehmet, but we don't know about the full board.
Well, I can, if he would like to speak, I understand that there was conversation with some of the board from him, but
okay,
yeah,
if I could
again,
just ask him,
formally.
Mehmet, to address that issue, and then we'll turn it over to Councilmember Bernice.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, Mehmet Casey, Development Director of the Downtown Billings Partnership. These discussions actually have taken place back in the spring of this year. If you guys pay attention often to our minutes, you might have noticed that several applications have gone in front of the partnership recently about either defaulting or not meeting deadlines. And so there was a collective effort in cleaning that up. One of which the applications that were discussed then was this one. At the time, the decision was made to essentially tell the developer or the applicant to either execute something or reapply and come back and release the funds and reapply when they're ready. The developer agreed to execute the agreement, and the reason was once you have an executed agreement, you then have deadlines that all parties can be held accountable to. Some of you will recall this same building under a different name, under a different owner, was promised funds that were never released to that person because the agreement was never executed. So we didn't want to fall in the same scenario or situation. By the time the developer was ready to execute the development agreement, city staff discovered that condition on the staff memo back in September of 2022. Neither one of us, city staff or myself, have notes or documentations of that condition. So as far as my board is concerned, they essentially gave the developer and the applicant an ultimatum, and the developer was ready to execute. The ball is in your court now. And so the condition, I'm sure there was good reason for placement of that, but as far as we're concerned, we and the developer was under the impression that they had 180 days to execute the development agreement after acquisition of the phase 2 approval from the state on the historic tax credit. But again, from my board standpoint, they didn't realize that that could take 3 years. And so that's why they exercised a little bit of a pressure to execute the development agreement.
Okay, so just to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that I'm hearing that the partnership doesn't have any objection to an extension as long as there's a signed development agreement in the near future. Is that
Correct.
a fair
Correct.
summary?
And in terms of the question, there was an earlier question about the fund and whether or not that impacts the budget. As you've indicated and you've mentioned, it's been budgeted all these years, and so there's no impact, and we're still in the positive. So that would continue, again, assuming that there's an executed development agreement, and then now the applicant is meeting the deadlines indicated in the development agreement.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Bernice, do you have a question for one
Wyeth.
of these three?
Wyeth, yeah.
For Wyeth?
Wyeth, you said everything's the same. I have a couple of questions for you. One is regarding the development agreement. You and I talked about this, but there will be the new development agreement that's executed, the one that has the prevailing wages in it now. Is that correct?
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, correct. Yeah, that's the current template for the agreement.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, so there's this condition of 365 days. If it wasn't executed, then the deal terminated. So what I don't understand is if it was terminated, your contract's done, you're void, why didn't it go back through the whole process again? Why are we seem to be skipping, even though the board met in spring about cleaning some stuff up, they didn't know at that time that the whole deal was terminated because they didn't meet the 365 days.
Councilmember Neese and Mayor and Council, I guess the way that staff has looked at it, it was the development. The condition was tied to the development agreement getting executed. Right. So the project was approved, and the time frame was for that agreement to get executed within that, at the 365 days as the expiration based on the condition. So coming back, I guess, what seemed to be the best approach to that versus there's nothing, I guess, right now that I have that would say, oh, you're just done, it's over, because the recommendation, what was recommended for the award and all that was still there. It was just the development agreement execution that hadn't occurred.
Yeah, I understand that, but I believe that, boards change, ideas change, especially in 3 years. There's a lot that's happened downtown that has changed. And so it would have been more comfortable just having the board actually look at the entire project instead of looking at 22 data on every application. It would, in my opinion, it should have been refreshed, knowing now that the whole deal was void. But let me ask you a question, because this was asked by Scott a little bit, and I don't know the answer to this, but this money that was kind of held in reserve, is there any priority that's put on that money as far as if someone else wants to come in today and get $800,000 or $750,000, would they be told no because this money is being held? And if they were to submit their application today, and it's a great project ahead of Randy, because let's say there's not enough money for two projects, 750, would this project have priority over? Because in my opinion, it's kind of void. But what is the priority set on these TIF districts when they're being applied, and they're in I wouldn't call it default because it's a void application.
Yeah, I guess depending on the different terms of what we think the status is, but from the standpoint of the actual budget, I think it's a little complicated and not quite as cut as to say that if a project came in today that it wouldn't happen or wouldn't be able to be awarded funds because of this project. It's going to really depend, again, and Mehmet can chime in here too, on the budget that the downtown is operating under at any given time. So yes, this funding is shown in that budget and is factored in. So yes, it does have an impact at some level as other projects come in and request funds. The difference, I guess, or the change over time is that, the budget for downtown fluctuates, projects get done, projects come in. And so I don't know, I guess it would be sort of, it depends on what kind of project or how much was being asked, where you could try to go back and calculate if that's an impact or not. We have other projects in downtown that are in there that are starting or in different, parts of their process that are also in the budget. So they're being factored in as well. So I think, yes, it has an impact. I don't think it's necessarily like, apples to apples exactly based on when projects come in, what they're asking for and all those things. But yeah, it's a placeholder. So yes, it has an impact.
It is having an impact. Okay. And then just real quick on this is there's always a clause in there, if there's not enough money in the TIF, then they could be carried over different years.
Correct.
How does it, that's not prorated, is that priority set by whoever started their project first, gets the first money out, and then if there's no money left over to that last guy, he's got to wait another year?
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, yeah, it's based on with projects that are actually in the process that are, if they're coming in for reimbursement, then they would be reimbursed. Or if there's bonding, we have to pay bonds, that's in there too. Those all have to happen first, and then it comes down to whichever project is.
Okay,
yeah.
so the priority starts upon when they actually either execute the development agreement, or is it when they actually start construction?
I guess my understanding would be, so when you execute the development agreement, there's also then the time frame that's called out in terms of when the project might actually start requesting reimbursement. And normally that's at least a year from then, the next fiscal year. So you're at least a fiscal year out.
Okay, so this isn't impacting that priority at all until he actually starts building.
At this point, right? We're not at a point where it would be,
I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Mehmet, I just have a simple question for you, which is, what does the downtown TIF want us to do right now? The developer had requested that we delay this. Is that the recommendation, or would you like us to make a motion to conditionally approve this and not have it come back in November?
Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, I guess if it's at all the same with the council, if to hear from the applicant, maybe in their preference, because like I stated in earlier, from my board standpoint, we were ready for the execution to happen by June 30th of this year, and the board was specific about that to make sure that it happens before the new fiscal year, so that hopefully we can set the dates based on the new fiscal year. Obviously, between now and then, it took some time to discover the conditions and to decide collectively that we need to bring this back to you so that a decision is made here. So now we are in the new fiscal year. It is already delayed, which means, no reimbursement will happen obviously in this year, and we'll have to wait for the project to be completed. So from the board standpoint, it doesn't matter if it's approved tonight or if it waits until November, because we're already in fiscal year 26.
Mayor, could we hear from the developer then, and then I'll be prepared.
Yes, that's a very good segue. That was going to be my suggestion. At least one of the developers is on his way.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Randy Hafer. I'm representing Old Billings Hardware Development Venture LP as a general partner in that development. I'm really sorry that we're even having this conversation tonight, but I just want to be very clear that the development agreement that we were working with had no language whatsoever about 365 days. The language in there was very specific that we needed to sign it within 180 days after we received our approved Part 2 application of the historic tax credit. That's what we were working under. Then the board did make a decision earlier this spring that they wanted us to sign that before June 30th, as Mehmet just said. And we were working with the partnership to finalize the agreement, and we had finalized it. We were ready to sign it, and in fact, then it went to Wyeth's office, and then that's when we found out that there was this 365-degree or day after it was awarded provision. We had never, ever heard anything about that because we would not have let it lapse. We would have been back to talk to you or whatever we needed to do if we had been aware of that provision. So that was a complete surprise to us. So the fact that we're here today, I apologize for that, but we didn't know. And we were working in good faith with the best information that we had. We were ready to execute. We're ready to execute now. But we would have had this all signed by June 30th, but for this issue that came up that we were totally unaware of. The partnership was unaware of it. I still don't even know where it came from. So, but it's out there. That's not something that we'd ever seen. If we had known about it, we would have acted accordingly.
Okay, well, it looks like we've got some questions. I think I saw Councilmember Asperley's hand and the Councilmember Kennedy and Councilmember Rowan.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Hafer, I'm going to press you a little bit here now, because if you're ready to execute it today, you requesting that it gets put on November 10th or some date later, as determined by you and the staff, dragging it out longer, leaves me to assume that you're not ready to execute the project. And my underlying concern with this entire application is that it got approved and we're 3 years later, and now we're talking about more extensions while this is still an obligation that carries out over a 5-year payout. So even assuming that you get this built by the end of 2027, we're paying out on this thing in the TIF district for 5 years. So we're not done paying you until 2032, leveraging the TIF district way out there again. And I still am not getting any level of confidence from you when you're actually going to build the project. And that's my core concern with this, is that we're leaving you this financial placeholder until you figure out your financial package. And that's the backwards way, in my mind, to do this.
Well, let me first say that when we applied for this TIF grant in 2022, we were prepared to move forward. We were moving forward. But if you recall, lots of things were happening at that time, and basically the whole world changed. So we're coming out of COVID, we had supply chain issues, inflation went crazy, interest rates, it was really interest rates that killed the deal. And so our whole financing package fell apart. We were not able to execute the project at that time. And because the market was so volatile for really until now, we've put it together 4 different times, and we've had it fall apart 4 times. This time, the only reason we're asking this date really today, it doesn't mean anything. But we've thought if we could come back in 2 months, I would be standing here telling you that we have part 2 approved. It's going to be approved within the next few weeks. We'd have our financing already in hand, and I could tell you that we're going to start on December 1st. I can't tell you that we're starting on December 1st today, but that is what we're aiming at. We do have a package put together that we're moving forward with. Because of the difficulties in this market up until hopefully now, we've thought at different times that we were ready to go. We've had whole packages put together. And so we really wanted to be in a place where we could say we have it. That's the only reason that we'd ask for a later date. But we'll execute now because we're confident that we're going to make that happen.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. This isn't a question. I appreciate your commentary, and maybe this is a comment for Wilmette to carry back to the board. Like this stuff happens in the downtown and the Ebird more than it happens anywhere else. And we get these applications, and when the package falls apart, then we need to kill the project and make the project go back through the application process. Because I question whether our actions on the Don Cape project, the AC Hotel project, would have been different if we had not had this obligation out. Maybe we would have paid that project off in 4 years instead of 5. But we carry these things forward as placeholders, again, allowing people to try to figure this out. When people apply, they need to have this figured out. And we should be taking the last step and not using this as a placeholder to then give everybody time to figure out how to make it work on the assumption that they have this in the bank. This should be the last thing to take a project over the top, not the first thing in a funding in a finance package. That's the complete backwards approach, and we do that far too often, especially in the downtown TIF. We do that all the time, and that's frustrating as hell for me. That's not how businesses operate. That's not how a private business would approach this, and it's not how a bank approaches this. So to me, I struggle with this one. I appreciate that you're close to ready, or you say you're close to ready, but you've been close to ready 4 times. You just said that. And I mean, help me have confidence. I don't have any confidence right now that we're not going to obligate this and then things fall apart again. So I think I'm gonna vote against moving this forward. until you can come back with your tax credits in place, your finance package in place, and to say, hey, we are now finally ready to go forward, and here's our package that says so. I can't keep doing this because it's bad business.
I'd like to respond to that if I may.
I think we need to, sure, and then Councilmember Kennedy and Owen. But go ahead, Randy.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that this award of $745,000 is critical to our capital stack. And you talk about, I mean, we're private business. This is how we've done it. We have to start putting pieces together before we can even get a bank to talk to us anymore. The world has changed dramatically, and it's enormously frustrating. Man, they're happy to lend you money all day long as you don't need it, but that's not the case here. So if we were to take it away right now, we may kill the project. It's very important that we keep this. The bank that we're working with assumes that we have this because we have had it. And I understand what you're saying and your frustration with the time. We're unhappy about that too. But what happened with COVID and its aftermath that's completely beyond our control. And at this point, though, to say, well, we're going to start all over again, that everything falls apart again. So we're asking you, frankly, we're begging you, please don't do that. We're finally very close. This is going to be a really important project for downtown. And we've been working diligently on this thing for years. And it's been, if you're frustrated, I can only assure you that we're way more frustrated. But we are finally close to the finish line, and we need that, since the step has come up, we need to get past this step.
Very good. Don't go away. There may be some other questions. Councilmember Kennedy and Councilmember Owen.
I guess I'm looking at your project financing. I see that you have the land and the building. You have some cash invested. You're waiting for historic tax credit equity, and you're looking for the tax increment financing district. Do you have financing in place to go with the rest of the money?
It's the debt financing that's the only piece that's still missing.
The what is?
The debt financing. So that's the bank. But we do have all of the cash equity. The tax credit equity comes in at the end of the project, but we do have, this bank is intending to be the tax credit investor. So that equity will come from them.
Okay. I have a question for Wyatt.
What?
I'm a little disturbed over the fact that Mr. Hafer said he knew nothing about that he would have to have this done quickly. And you found this council piece that said it was supposed to be done right away. And he says he has documents that doesn't say that. Downtown folks said they knew nothing about it. How did you find it now when you've been running this program for quite a while?
Councilmember Kennedy and Mayor and Council. So first, this condition was different than the standard conditions we normally have, which is 180 days you execute the development agreement. Again, as Mamet pointed out, when he came and said we're ready to do this, I went back because it was 2022. I went back to look at when the action was taken, because we also, when we execute development agreements, we include the minutes from the council meeting, the memo from the council action, the minutes from the downtown board. That all goes together. So when I went to do that, I saw that there was this condition that was 365 days or completion of phase 2 of those tax credits. So first, that isn't a normal condition. It hasn't been. It's been 180 days. So for some reason, and it is not in the minutes, the council put that on there at that time. I don't know if it was because it was tied to the tax credit effort and there was a concern.
I just don't think the council just puts it on and we all forget it.
We didn't forget it because I caught it when it came in.
I'm just concerned because this project has been limping on for quite a while. And, it probably is one that if you would have been familiar with everything, we probably would have caught this a long time ago. I have some real concerns on this and real concerns that we're back here today and there's financing or no financing or whatever. I have some concerns on this whole project now because of the delay, because of the, it's just been sitting out there. I also have a concern on that the Downtown Business District Board really didn't have an opportunity to review this before it came here to us and say either go forward or don't. And that hasn't, Mehmet, you may talk to a few people, but it isn't anything that went through the board. So I have some concerns on all of this. So on the whole, this shouldn't have come to us until it was either neatly wrapped in a package or it should have been just dropped and we bring it back that it should be able to move forward quickly. I have some real concerns on that.
Yeah, well, and that's why we brought it back to you, was because of the condition and the expiration. So I guess, yeah, I want to be really clear here. If I had known and this had been brought for the DA to be executed, I don't know, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, this exact same thing would have come up if we had passed 365 days. So when this came forward in the way that it did to execute the development agreement, that's when, pulling all those documents together, this was discovered.
Very good. Councilmember Owen?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions for Randy, if you don't mind. I really believe in downtown housing. I think we need it. I think it's important, but I also concur with my colleagues that we need to get these projects moving. So I want to make really sure that I understand exactly where this project stands tonight. Have the Phase 2 tax credits been approved?
The Phase 2 tax credit application is in Washington, D.C. with National Park Service right now.
Okay, so no.
They have 30 days. It's been there for a week or two. We expect it back in the next few weeks.
And does that come back with a yes or no, or does it come back with work on these things and resubmit?
It normally comes back approved, and so then that piece is done, and that's what's necessary in order for a tax credit investor to be able to say that yes, we're ready to invest.
The reason I ask is we got them on. Kevin is an unexpected expert in historic tax credits on this building, and they did come back a couple of times with you have to work on this, you have to work on that. So what are the chances they come back with that?
With us, almost zero.
Okay.
I think we've had one comment in about 20 projects.
Okay.
Because we know how to do these. We do a lot of them.
So financing not final yet, as we've talked, right? I'm looking at your project report here that was included in our packet. And it said that in late August or early September, you expect to have 100% construction drawing done. Is that done?
That's correct. That's, yes.
Been submitted for permit?
Well, no. It says they'll be submitted by the end of this month.
Okay, so your intent is to submit permits at the end of this month?
To submit for the permit, yes.
And is that contingent on finding financing?
No.
Okay.
The financing isn't finished. That will be submitted for permit anyway.
Okay, so what's holding the permit up? Or the submission for permit, excuse me.
Well, the drawings aren't quite finished.
Okay, so we're not quite at 100% yet. Okay. That's helpful for me to understand exactly where we stand. And then this is a little bit of a side note, but you have a lot of projects in front of you. You're a bustling firm. Where's the Futurity Tower standing right now?
Futurity is, well, really, the market is very, very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a funder for the vast majority, over $30 million. We've got some resources for private capital. The loan on that would be a HUD guaranteed loan, or HUD guarantee on the loan. And HUD has been a little bit squirrely. And also, they're not very communicative. So we've been working with them to get all of their questions answered. We do have a team, I think it's an excellent team of folks from around the state and the region, ranging from property managers to engineers and architects and suppliers. We have a contractor, the whole 9 yards, but it's very obvious that this HUD office is not at all familiar with CLT mass timber construction. They're apparently out of San Francisco, and they don't get the fact they just don't understand how you can do a high rise in downtown and it snows.
Okay.
Like, where are people supposed to park? Right. So
there's
we're
some
dealing with
work
these
to
kinds
do
of
on
issues.
that one project still.
And it's frustrating.
Okay.
But we're working through it. That again, we're working on that every day.
Okay. And then, Mayor, I just have one more question, and then I'll have a question for Gina.
Go ahead.
You just mentioned that this is a tough market. Do you anticipate that either your financing or the actual start of construction will be contingent on a certain percentage of having leased some units out? Are we going to have to get some market before this project gets moving?
We have not. That has not been suggested that we need to do that. We know that won't happen with the residential portion because that isn't even possible.
Okay.
So there's some potential that they could come back and say we're only going to fund the residential portion first, and then when you have some leasing, the commercial portion. That has happened in the past, and we could make that work. But right now, we're looking at funding the whole project, and that's what they're looking at.
And you don't anticipate having to revise your TIF request and ask for more money, more TIF money?
We're not asking for any more money.
Okay. All right. And then I just have a quick question for Gina, Mayor, if that's all right.
Sure, Gina.
And then I will be done, I promise. So, Gina, I do kind of want to go back to this question of council approved an agreement with a contingency. That contingency was not met. Why do we not just consider this award void? It's well lapsed.
I agree. And I actually don't have that original agreement in front of me. So I can only, well, I can speculate, but I think Wyeth might be better equipped to explain why it didn't go back through the process. I think that it could definitely, depending on that language, could definitely be considered, as you've stated, void and terminated. But without reading the actual language, I hate to have a definitive opinion.
Understood. Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Very good. Councilmember Shaw, is your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I think since earlier we voted not to delay this, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to conditionally approve it, as it doesn't require a public hearing. So I move to conditionally approve tax increment financing assistance from the Downtown Urban Renewal TIF District for Old Billings Hardware Development Venture LP for its mixed-use project 2802 Montana Avenue up to $745,000 as recommended by DBP Board. And then I'd like to speak to the motion if there's a second.
Is there a second to the motion? This is to approve, consistent with the staff recommendation. Is there a second? I'm not seeing a second. If there had been a second, I would have made a substitute motion, so I'll go ahead and make that motion. Your motion fails for lack of a second. My motion is to approve the original request made by or conveyed, which is to delay this until November 10th or a later date as determined by staff with the consent of the developer. And if there's a second to that, then I will speak to that. Councilmember Shaw has the second. My reason is I think this has been a great discussion and it shows the need to have more information. In particular, is the contract good? And we could say, no, it's not, and renounce the agreement. Well, if it is, that is automatically a breach of the contract. And I would highly recommend that we not proceed on the assumption that we do not have a contract here in what is really a lot of ignorance. So the way to deal with that is to delay this, give some time. This is a great project, and I think we all know it's a great project in a critical part of downtown, but there has to be money to complete the project. We all know that too. So hopefully we give a little bit of time, light a little fire under the potential funder, and come back and we get a better understanding of what the project looks like and have a clear green light, hopefully also on the tax credits, which are a critical part. This is an essential element of the funding stack. I appreciate Councilor Apfelleiner's comments. I would love for this to be the last in the step, but the only time that happens is when they don't need our money. Almost by definition, if they've got the funding, they got the funding and we don't have to jump in. And yet we always say, well, we want these dollars to be for projects that wouldn't happen but for our dollars. And that's exactly what I fear this situation, or not fear, but I suspect that's exactly what the situation is here. So anyway, that's the reason for the motion just to delay this. Councilmember Shaw, you had the second. I'll let you comment if you want, and then open up for discussion. Councilmember Shaw, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I agree. It has been, hopefully a hopeful discussion for when this comes back. I think underscores why the request earlier was to just delay this. But I hope that everyone, developers, downtown TIFF, have heard this discussion, and so that when it returns to us, it is all neatly wrapped up in a nice, beautiful bow. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Discussion now on the motion. Councilmember Aspenleiter?
Mr. Mayor, I'd suggest a friendly amendment. I'd move to amend the motion to make it a hard and fast date of November 10th.
And okay.
I can second that for discussion. I have concerns that I'd like to ask about that.
Why don't you go ahead and make that as an amendment to the proposed motion? You've got a second. Do you want any further discussion on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in leaving this open to drag and drag and drag forever and ever and ever. I mean, we're either going to do it or we're not going to do it. And, leaving this open to, or unless staff and the developer agree to schedule it some other time, I'm not interested in this lagging further, and it's still showing on the balance sheet. If it's going to go, it's going to go. If it's going to die, it's going to die. And I mean, by Mr. Hafer's own comments, we should know the answer to that by the end of October. And so if that's the truth, then we need to have it on the 10th and make a decision, yes or no, up or down, and move forward and clear this off of the balance sheet one way or the other. I'm not interested in this lagging any further than it already has.
Okay, thank you. And I'm okay with that if the developer doesn't see any great problem with that. Randy, do you want to comment again on the making definitely bringing this back by November 10th at the November 10th meeting?
I don't think I have probably a lot of choice. If we need another week, we're going to tell you. If you want to pull the plug and we've got a week to go, I guess you're going to do that too. But yes, we will be back on the 10th, if that's the date that you choose, and that's fine. I mean, we should be done by then.
Okay, and at that point, we can decide what to do, it sounds like. But further discussion now on the proposed amendment. Councilmember Bernice?
Yeah, I seconded that for discussion, but my concern on this is if it's coming back, again, as far as I'm concerned, this deal is dead. And so to bring something back that's dead, you can't bring it back. It has to go back through the board. And so, in fact, I looked up the September 12th, 2022 meeting. It's right there. It came from staff recommendation of, be within 365. So it wasn't something the council came up with during that time. It was something the staff recommended. And so it is something that was there clearly in the minutes or in the memo. And so as far as I'm concerned, the deal is dead. And so I don't know even why we're voting on it. I think it needs to go back to the board and then come back. And if November 2nd it tends the date, great. But I think the deal is dead. And I sure would like Gina to look into this further to make sure that we know that if we're just voting on a dead deal.
Okay. Again, comments on the proposed amendment, Councilmember Braun?
I might regret this immediately as soon as it comes out of my mouth, but given that we could look at this language fairly quickly and get an answer from Gina, can we take a 5-minute break and let her do that and tell us if this deal even can be extended? Look, I understand Council Member Aspenleiter's fury with this suggestion right now, but let's at least figure out one thing that we can figure out tonight.
We can, and it is 7:30, which is normally when we would take a break. My earlier comments, I'll just make again at that point, but I don't want to, you're not in prison here. So council, if you would like to take a 5-minute break, we can do that and come back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to force a vote on that because we are so close to the end.
It's not necessary to have a vote. I'll withdraw it. I was just trying to simply get one answer solved for council members tonight.
Yeah, and my concern is forcing a lawyer to make what is really absolutely fundamental, critically important decision based on 5 minutes is never a good idea. So I'm going to say, let's press ahead. And I'm just going to use my discretion, I guess, to keep moving ahead. So with that, though, is there any other discussion on the proposed amendment, which would just give a November 10th firm date for this to come back? Councilmember Boyette.
Mamet, do you have a minute? You didn't seem too excited about this. You didn't have your positive face on. Do you think by us waiting until November 10th, this is going to resolve itself? Question. What is your feeling?
Councilman Boyette, sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if we wait until November 10th,
Correct.
what is your feeling that this will take care of itself, that we'll be able to move forward? Or would you wish us to kill this? Just asking your opinion.
If I were to speak on behalf of Mayor and Council and Councilmember Boyette, if I were to speak on behalf of my board, I think they would be incredibly disappointed, disheartened, whatever adjective you want to insert in killing this project. I think this project has been years, decades possibly in the making. And the only reason the applicant is requesting the delay in November, and if I may speak on behalf of the applicant, is the applicant tends to be, historically from my interactions with him, he tends to want to be 110% sure of the deadlines that they're committing to before they're committing to them. So in the sake of transparency, that's the request of that extension. Otherwise, as you heard from him today, he's ready to execute today if that's the wish of the council. And to touch base on some of the other comments that have been made and some things that I forgot to mention, I did go back and watch the council meeting from September 2022 as well. Not anywhere in my presentation did we talk about that condition. Not any member on the council did ask about that condition. Again, the reason staff brought it back is because from a legal standpoint, if you approved that as recommended by staff, it implies that the language written on the staff memo was approved by council in that way. So if we're making any changes to it, we brought it to you for tonight, forward, for your consideration if it is to be reviewed again in any different fashion. So the applicant has requested extending it. Again, from my board standpoint, it doesn't make a difference if we approve it tonight or November because we're already in fiscal year 26. It's already been budgeted out 5 years away from the year in which it is completed. Whether it gets completed in FY 26 or 27, that becomes very evident once it's executed. The development agreement itself is not executed, and that's why the board wanted to put some teeth to the development agreement. If I may comment to council members Aspenleiter's earlier statements, the reason why we've cleaned up our act was actually this building. This building set the tone for when an agreement was not executed, and we cleaned up all the agreements. The recent 4 default applications, 2 of which complied and corrected those defaults, 1 withdrew and 1 was denied. So this thing doesn't happen all the time in the downtown TIF district. And the reason for that was it was cleaned up with the partnership that we had with the city staff to look at the development agreement language to make sure that there are no loopholes for these situations. The reason why this has taken 3 years, not because we've all taken a hiatus nap, we've all been in communication closely with the applicant and understand the complexity of the historic tax credit, much like the LIHTC as well, from one of the applicants, Montana Rescue Mission, and how long that took. And so we just wanted to put some teeth to the development agreement by executing it, and then they have to match or meet the deadlines.
Okay.
And if they don't, they default.
Very, very good. Thank you. Council, the motion before you is for just the amendment portion of creating a November 10 hard date for this applicant to come back. We'll move ahead to Councilor Bernice. Is the
I had a question for Mamet. Because it's going to decide whether I vote yea or nay on this, even though I second
Okay.
it. Mehmet, will you bring this back to your board to get your board to approve this?
Happy to.
So it'll be there before November 10th?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that's going to really,
I can put it on the September agenda.
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is a void project, but if it comes back through the board, back to the council on November 10th as a new project, then I'm fine, but it has to be new information. Thank you.
Very good. He nodded his head. Everybody couldn't hear that. And so that was indication of yes. So, okay, very good. Then we'll move ahead to the vote. The vote is again just on the amendment portion. Create that November 10 hard date. If in favor of the proposed amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
If, and Councilmember Gulick was not voting. We appreciate that. If voting in opposition, please say nay. So the amendment passes unanimously. Now we've got the amended motion, which is just for this to come back on November 10th. And Councilmember Gulick.
Yes, I want to recuse myself from this vote on this project again, as my business is involved in it.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification. If in favor of now the amended motion for this project to come back on November 10th, for your further consideration, if please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. That motion passes unanimously, and we'll see you on November 10th. Thank you, everybody, for your discussion. Very educational and more to find out between now and then. And so good discussion, much appreciated. I know I learned a lot. That concludes then regular items. And next item on our agenda is just public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anything for public comment on items not on our agenda? If so, please come to the podium. We just ask that you give us your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Any public comment on things not on our agenda? Seeing nobody coming forward, we'll close the public comment period. Council initiatives, turn over to Councilmember Kennedy.
Mayor, before you is the policy that I put together. Everyone should have a copy of it. And its policy is department directors will need to live in the city of Billings. The city of Billings is a wonderful city to live in and raise your family. We offer a lot. We give water, sewer, street, library, police, and fire protection, and garbage pickup, along with wonderful parks. A department director makes a large-scale decisions for their department and the city. This also entails requests for more funding and raising rates on city residents. This proposal includes the director in our tax base. If there is no loyalty to the city to where we live, why would the taxpayers want to pay their salary? This is a policy decision and not a hiring duty of the board. That was pointed out by legal counsel. If you would look at the second sheet I gave you, and this is Article 4 on the city administrator employment and compensation. The city administrator shall carry out policies established by the city council. The city council, as I have gone through the charter system and the Billings charter, it states that the council can make policy. Now, the city administrator does the hiring, does the firing, and runs the place. We can set policy. This is a policy statement, and I'm just asking that department heads, the same as the city administrator contract, live in the city of Billings. So that's what I bring forward tonight, and I would
is that a motion?
Take any question. I'll make it as a motion that we go forward with this policy.
Second. And just to clarify, the motion is to put this on it's as an agenda setting item. So this would go on to a future agenda if the motion is approved for discussion. Doesn't decide the issue. It just puts it on an agenda for future discussion. Is there a second?
That's second. Yeah, I'm a second that for future discussion on the agenda.
Okay, very good. And Councilmember Kennedy, you've already addressed your motion. Is there anything further though before I hand it to Councilmember Neese? Okay, Councilmember Neese, you had the second. Did you want to address?
Yeah, I think this is a good idea to take a look at. I've long thought that the department heads who actually make the decision, the fees, the taxes that are assessed by all of our citizens, they should kind of share in that. And so I think this is going to be a good discussion that we can have. And I understand there could be some issues. We have to make some exceptions until everyone's in the city, but I'm all willing to take a look at this and see what we can do to create this policy. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion on the proposed motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Kenny?
I would just ask that it be on an agenda in October.
Okay, then I guess we call that a friendly amendment. And if it's consistent with Councilmember Bernice?
I'm okay with that. Do we know who needs to kind of do the work on this to bring this forward to us?
There we'd have to ask the city administrator, who's tonight is Kevin Iflin.
So in brief consultation with our city attorney, we are anticipating that this would probably have to be a ordinance change, that we don't have anywhere where we have council policy statements. So that's what we'd be looking at. So it would take some work of where that would go potentially in an ordinance.
Could it be a resolution?
Then that would be another option we'd look at.
Because we do have a
Initial
whole list,
thoughts, and
whole
Gina
list
can
of
comment
resolutions
further if needed. But
I'm sorry, there was a audio problem there. What did you say, Kevin?
yes, we could look at whether it needs to be an ordinance or a resolution. And I don't know if Gina can comment further on that, I guess, at this point, but that's more than likely where it would need to go as one of those.
And this would involve which legal and pay and HR? Is that what you're looking at, or
And administration, yes.
and administration? Okay.
Did Councilor Kennedy, did you want to comment? I'll ask Gina to comment.
Yes, I would just have you call up the local government center in Bozeman. They'll talk to you on policy. And then if you go through the MCA codes, Title VII, it will lay out on the policy. And then as I looked up and did the work on looking at the policy and what the charter says and our charter says of what policies the council can make, we can make policy and the city administrator carries it out to their duties. And when you look at this, this is not this is a policy governing anyone that takes one of those positions. And so it's laid out. It's really cut and dried when I looked at everything. So you shouldn't take very long.
Gina, do you want to comment on the procedural aspect of this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Generally, I agree that with Councilmember Kennedy's statement about council being able to make policy, that's absolutely certainly true. There is a state statute that requires, just trying to find it here, that sets forth the general qualifications for municipal officers, elective or appointed. Those need to be prescribed by law or by ordinance. So I just need a little bit of time to reconcile our charter with state law. So if this is, excuse me, if the request is to set this for a work session in October, that's absolutely more doable. But I guess I'm just trying to clarify if Councilmember Kennedy's expectation or request is that this be ready for final action in October. I'm not so sure about that, but.
Okay, Councilor Kennedy, can you clarify? I guess it was my assumption we'd want to see some sort of a draft and that'd be a work session type thing, but it's your motion, so you want to.
Actually, I think we've had a lot of it. We don't have to have more discussion at a work session. I think we have it back for final vote in a board meeting in October.
Okay. I'll address the merits and Councilmember Shaw after that. I will vote against this, but I do appreciate the logic of it, giving department heads a direct interest, especially financial, in the decisions they make. And I agree that City Council does have the power to set these sorts of things as policy. And I appreciate especially need for maybe proximity being a factor for like the chief of police or the fire chief. And all things being equal, I'd prefer that our department heads do live in the city. But I still oppose it for very practical reasons. First, I don't think there's a lot to be gained here. I don't think the residency requirement really would influence department head decision making. The reality is that these are mostly, the idea is to give them a fiscal or financial stake in the decisions they make, but typically the costs that they have direct impact on are relatively small dollars. Raise a fee here, raise a tax there, a few $100s at the most, a few nickels or dimes at the least. And so that in comparison to where their family lives is a huge deal. And I just don't think there's much to be gained in that comparison. But by contrast, I do think there are a lot of negative effects that could come from this. First, I do think it'll hurt more morale. Send the message to our department heads that we can't really fully trust them to be professional in making their judgment without giving them these small disincentives. And then I think it would hurt recruiting and retention. On the recruiting end, just the reality is some people like horses. I don't, but some particularly, but some people like roosters. Well, no, I like horses. Don't send me an email. Or having 4 dogs, or shooting their bow and arrow, or using their BB gun. And if they don't like that, their spouse or their kids do. And people make these decisions. They're very important decisions, and good employees are hard to find, and we shouldn't put up unnecessary barriers to them. Also, retention. I fear about how this could impact our retention of people who are already working for the city. When a department head leaves, it's often a good thing to hire from within the organization, and in particular from within that department. And I don't think that we should be telling existing employees who maybe worked for the city for many, many years and several layers down from the top, that if they don't live in the city, they either have to move into the city or give up what might be their dream of at some time running that department. I think that would hurt retention. Then lastly, though, I think many of the costs and benefits are really hard to determine. I mean, there's no exact crystal ball, either positively or negatively on this issue. But I do think we should be influenced by what other cities are doing. And although there are some cities in the United States who are doing this, based on my research, it appears that none of the 8 largest cities in Montana impose any sort of residency requirement for their department heads. There's clearly a national trend away from imposing these residency requirements. So when you put all these things together, I think that it's more prudent that we not sail alone into these uncharted waters. So I'll oppose the motion. And staff is just already very, very busy. I think they've got higher priorities. Councilmember Shaw, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Mayor, you made most of the points I was going to make, which I appreciate. So I would just second all of those. The only one that I would just add that you hit on in the end is, Council, we keep throwing these initiatives at staff, and it's derailing them from being able to pursue the priorities that we've adopted, because they're just every week or every couple of weeks getting a new something like this. So please do not underestimate the amount of time that we're asking them to even put into researching this by going forward. So I would definitely urge council not to approve this and not waste staff time on something that we're not seriously considering. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for the discussion now on the motion. Councilor Asplater, Councilmember Gillett, Councilmember Owen.
Yeah, this is a hard one for me. I understand the intent, and I fully respect where Councilmember Kennedy is coming from in this, but I don't think I can support this one. I am concerned about hiring the most qualified person. That's what I want. I want the most qualified people, the most educated people, and the most driven people to lead our city. And sometimes that means that they make family decisions to not live inside the city. We're not hiring department heads that live in Bozeman. We're not hiring them to live in places that preclude them from making it to their job every day. I don't want to limit the candidate pool for us in the future or going forward by putting a restriction in place. I want to make sure that we're hiring the most qualified people. And at the end of the day, I think that should always be our goal. I understand the intent, and I certainly believe that staff understands the impacts of the decisions that they make every day. I truly believe that. I just think this creates maybe an unintended burden or hurdle for us, a barrier for us to attracting the best candidates in the future. So I'm gonna be a no tonight on this one.
Very good. Councilmember Gillick.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, agree on the face of it, it's well-meaning, it makes sense. But the more I thought about it, I just don't think it's necessarily in the public interest. It's in the public interest for us to have the most qualified candidate pool we can have. So I think Councilmember Aspenleiter, as well as the mayor, voiced very well what my thoughts are. And for instance, I think we have a very excellent public works director, and our public works director does not live in Billings. The director was hired from within. You know, she wouldn't have been able to become our public works director if we had this in place at the time. And I think there's just more potential downside than upside. So I won't be supporting either.
Very good. Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to support this. I think the concerns that have been raised are well placed and entirely resolvable. There are communities that do this, and many of them include a waiver where there's good cause to waive it. So there may be someone who has worked for the city for a long time and lives outside the city. There may be, we have to care for an elderly relative outside the city. There may be good cause. But I would ask council members to consider that this might also serve as a good policymaking canary in the coal mine for us. If in fact the city administrator is out recruiting for department directors and is hearing, I can't afford to live in Billings, I don't think it's safe to live in Billings, or whatever concern is being raised, we should know that. That should weigh on us as we are making larger policy for the city. So I think this gives us an opportunity to begin hearing from people who might be making decisions to relocate to the community, that they find that easy or not easy. And that's important information for us to know in guiding the policy here. So I believe an ordinance can be written that would ensure we don't have an unnecessary barrier, that we're respectful to family decisions, but that we also have the information to understand the dynamics and the perception of our cities when it comes to hiring. And that's important information for us. So I'm going to support this and hope that my council colleagues will reconsider, and at least let's have a conversation about whether or not we can do this in a way that does serve the public interest.
Very good. Councilmember Shaw. Oh, I looked at Councilmember Neese. It's Councilmember Shaw.
Okay.
Councilmember Neese. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Councilmember Owen, because that's what I was thinking too, is and we have to at least have a discussion to talk about this, to get this on the table. And at that point, if the policy is just not acceptable at that time, I would probably vote against it. I mean, like you mentioned, there needs, I was thinking about that as the mayor and Councilman Gulick spoke of that, we need to have some kind of waiver in there. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are going to be some exceptions that we need to do. And so I think that's where it's something that we need to make sure that we look at the whole picture, but we have to have this discussion. So I hope you'll support that and reconsider so that we can have the discussion and come up with a really good policy that won't inhibit those great employees to coming to work for Billings, because we have a great city.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. Other discussion on the motion. The motion before you is Councilmember Kennedy's to go forward at this future business meeting in October. Councilmember Boyette.
So the idea was to have this a work session, or?
No, my understanding is the motion was a business meeting in October. Councilmember Kennedy's nodding his head, and Councilmember Neese, I think, had
it is.
read that on.
Councilmember Kennedy, I would sure appreciate a friendly amendment to a work session. I would like. I think we need to have some better discussion during the work session than have it already baked and try to negotiate it during a business session.
So, Councilmember Neese, I need some clarification. That I apologize. I was treating Councilmember Kennedy's clarification of a business meeting being his intent, that you went along with that. But now I'm not so sure about that, so we may need to put that to a
Yeah.
vote as an amendment.
Yeah,
If
so
you
that
could-
is that's a good point, because I initially thought it was going to be during work session, but then you clarified it and you said business session. I didn't say anything about it, but I am concerned that I think the discussion is going to be better held at a work session than a business session.
Okay, so we'll need some clarification from Councilmember Kennedy about what his motion is, business versus work
You
session.
know,
And depending on that, we'll ask for see whether we have a second.
Mayor, I could go to a work session and we could do it. I just don't want a series of charts and everything to come up. I want a discussion with the council on it. I don't need staff to go through umpteen PowerPoints and everything on this. I'd like to hear from folks if you want a waiver in there on being able to, if it affects hiring the best person or whatever. But I think the real intent is Billings is a good place to live. If you really can't live here and you have to live out of town, is there a real legitimate reason that you don't want to live inside the city of Billings, but you do want to be employed by the city of Billings? So I don't have a problem with running it on an October work session, and then hopefully we pass it to go on to the next to the business meeting.
Okay, so the motion has been clarified that it does refer to a work session in October. Now, Councilmember Neese,
Yes,
I assume that's
more
consistent
likely what I'd
with your
like to
intent
second,
on
yes.
your second. So we still have a motion before you, Council, but now clarified to be a work session. Further discussion now on that motion, Councilmember Gulick.
Yeah, I made my comments tonight in part because we were talking about a business session. And, you know, I initially when we brought it up, I thought, well, I'll just talk about this during when we have the discussion in a work session and my concerns about it. But I think Councilmember Shaw makes a very good point, is that there is an opportunity cost. We do have adopted goals and priorities, and we just keep giving staff reasons not to be able to work on those. And so I am concerned about that. So even though we're talking about a work session, I think I will still vote against this, but I'd certainly feel better about the fact that we would be discussing it in a work session.
Very good. Yeah, that doesn't change my opposition to it. So any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Councilmember Aspenleiter?
Yeah, and I would just say the same thing in full transparency. Like I don't see myself getting, even with a waiver process, getting to a yes on this policy. So I don't want to waste anybody's time or effort on it. I don't think it's I don't think it's a good policy to go forward with, and so I'm going to be a no regardless, and so I'll be a no tonight.
Very good. Any further discussion before we move to a vote? Okay, is the motion clear? Okay, no, I'm not seeing anybody to ask to restate the motion. So the motion is to proceed with a work session in October in this direction. If in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Just for clarity, Councilmembers Neese, Owen, Kennedy, Tidswell, and Boyette. If in opposition, raise your hand. Councilmembers Gulick, Cole, Aspenleiter, and Shaw. So the motion passes 5 in favor, 4 against. And so we'll see you in November.
So, Mayor, if I could interject just for a second, just so I'm clear, Councilmember Kennedy's comments, you do not want staff to prepare anything. It's just going to be a council discussion on that.
I don't want a PowerPoint and all of that. I want, if Gina comes back and states that there's a difference between policy and what we're asking, I'd like to know that. If not, I think we have a discussion on this policy, and if it's a waiver or whatever in there, so be it. But I think it sets precedent for, we really believe that people should live in the city. You know, the other piece I just wanted to comment on is, you know, you can say all you want about priorities set and everything else. We have council initiatives so people can bring up things. Every time I brought up an initiative, what comes back is you're taking too much staff time. Well,
Councilmember Kennedy.
I just
you
want to
understand the
finish
problem
up,
with continuing
and
here,
that's
so.
why I put it on the council initiative. So I think it should be heard, and I think it should be moved on instead of cutting it off every time I ask on something. So I appreciate the votes tonight. Thank you.
You bet. And I think that's why we have this process. So process works. With that, then, and Kevin, I'm hearing sort of presentation light, but I don't know about specific rules. You have to operate based on the motion that was made.
What I've interpreting basically is staff will bring back what the process, if something like that is adopted by council, whether that would be ordinance, resolution, or some other mechanism.
Okay, and I would encourage us to work with Councilmember Kennedy to make sure he's in the loop and comfortable with whatever the plan looks like, and maybe other council members as well. So, okay, very good. That is council initiatives, and so with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.